My name is Jim Boatman. I'm here with Alfie Oakes of Oakes Farms, and we're here to talk about some of the issues that have been percolating in the culture, in the community over the last 6 or so weeks. Um, Alfie, we've heard a lot about your comments and the use of the term hoax. To you, what does the word hoax even mean?
Well, but before I say what it means to me, I'm going to explain. Webster's dictionary says that a hoax, the definition, is a falsehood deliberately manufactured to masquerade as the truth. And so, in the post that I made with regarding to the Black Lives Matter and the COVID-19, uh, it's a rough word, but it so accurately describes both of those events, and certainly very apparent to me why. The Black Lives Matter movement, um, the reason I say that it's a hoax is because many people are led to believe that it's actually there to help Black lives and to unite our country together. And what we're seeing is that it's doing exactly the opposite. The results of it, I believe, intentfully are having those opposite results.
What would you say to people that say when you say Black Lives Matter is a hoax, you're indicating that Black lives really don't matter?
Well, uh, obviously, Black lives matter. All lives matter. Uh, the Black Lives Matter movement is what I'm referring to as the hoax. And
So what's a hoax about a movement that purportedly wants to bring equity and all good things to Black lives? You don't think that that's really what's involved?
well, I mean, I've been in business all my life, and I started, from a young age with nothing, and everything I've ever done has been based on the results that it has. The results that we're seeing in the BLM movement have been terrible results. So when I see them on the front side trying to act as if it's there to unify our country and to protect all Black lives, or to look out for all Black lives, I just see that it's doing something very, very different. And even in my post, I mentioned that why, the part that I guess I had the most problem with was, why is it not that this young police officer, African American woman that had several kids, did all the right things all her life, and got killed by one of the protesters in New York City? Why did that Black life seem not to matter? Or why do all of the Black on Black deaths not seem to matter? To me, all lives matter. All of those Black lives matter. So and I
So just to clarify, so your point is all Black lives matter, Black lives matter, from a concept or a societal norm. That's no hoax. The hoax is the movement itself. Is that what you're saying?
the hoax is absolutely the movement itself. So my opinion, that's supported by a lot of facts, is that this particular movement is funded by specific people at this specific time for a specific reason, and those reasons are not to unite us as Americans, or to help Black lives. Right now, it's creating a lot of racial divide in our country. When I see a lot of the things that have come out of this movement, I see cities being burned. I see even right here in Naples, I see young men and women coming and spray painting, buildings, and breaking things, and saying things such as "F the president" and "F other people," and those are not unifying tactics. The right to assemble and to have a peaceful protest, that's our First Amendment right, and I love every protester that comes out to do a protest for any cause, as long as the protest is peaceful. But that's really not what we're seeing here in the United States right now.
It's interesting. Have you observed that the type of protesting and behavior we're seeing now is markedly different than what we saw for instance, when Martin Luther King marched on the Washington Mall in support of the Civil Rights Act that was pending before Congress?
Absolutely. I mean, never in a time have I, in my lifetime, have I seen a movement that was so destructive, to where there's actual whole blocks of cities burning down and looting in mass proportion. We got Fifth Avenue in New York City is boarded up from one end to the other. This has not been a unifying event, and it doesn't seem to be helping anyone's life. It doesn't seem to be helping Black lives, white lives, brown lives. It doesn't seem to be helping any of us.
You've also come under scrutiny for the idea that COVID-19 is a hoax.
Yes.
Why don't we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to very similar thing. The COVID-19, I never said that the virus itself is a hoax. The way our government has decided to handle it, the fear that was instilled by the media to mass proportions, and the actions taken by the government have been devastating to this country for really no reason at all. And we're seeing 110,000 reported COVID deaths, but we know for a fact that the majority of those deaths, the folks weren't even tested. The doctor is allowed to say that if he suspects it, and that actually brings more money back to the hospitals. So there's financial reasons behind this over-reporting, and I think that some of the reasons that they're over-reported is beyond financial reasons. I think the government had a stake in trying to bump those numbers up. I mean, remember, we were told that there could be 2.2 million people that were going to die within an 8-week period or a 12-week period, and that was very, very false information. I was blessed enough to speak with an epidemiologist that was one of the a gentleman that was on a board that a military board, and he consulted with them. So he's one of the leading experts in the country, and I talked to him before there was ever any shutdown in our country, and he was very clear to me. I wish I could have recorded that conversation, but he was very clear to me in saying that 90+% of the people that ever get the COVID-19 virus will have zero symptoms whatsoever. They'll be completely asymptomatic, and that only 4 to 5% of the people would even become to the point where they would be ill, to where they would need any type of treatment at all. There was a few percent in between that might have a light sore throat or something. But he was concerned. His concern was that the hospitals might get overrun, and obviously everyone is always afraid of every new bug that comes every year. That we're afraid of what effects it could have. But that night, when I spoke with him, he did not feel like this was going to be something ever that was going to take the lives of anyone with a healthy virome.
How many employees does Oaks Farm currently have?
We have 2,300 employees.
To your knowledge, have you had any deaths associated with any Oaks employees?
We've emphatically had 0 deaths with any of our Oaks Farms employees, and that's another hoax that has been in the media, with 2 different media outlets reported, because I was the one that came out saying that this COVID-19 reaction is a hoax. They've kind of been foaming at the mouth to be able to come over, to come and say to me that, oh, one of your Oaks Farms employees died. One of the most this particular story that ran actually a week ago today on Fox 4 is one of the most disgraceful pieces of journalism that I've ever seen. There's Patrick Nolan from Fox 4 News came out and had a reporter recording a statement from a gentleman that said that he had a friend that died. He actually took to the hospital. They didn't get an ambulance because they couldn't afford an ambulance, and he took this friend to the hospital that ultimately died of COVID-19. Now, the way that Fox 4 reported it was that this gentleman that was speaking and the gentleman that did die of apparent COVID-19 virus worked at our Oaks Farms. It's clearly what it said in the news article there. The facts of that are 100% different. They could not be more different. The way the conversation really went was the reporter called the gentleman and he asked if he worked at Oaks Farms, and he said no. Had he ever worked at Oaks Farms? And the gentleman said no. And he said, did his friend that had ultimately passed away ever work at Oaks Farms? And he said no. In fact, this gentleman proceeded to tell him where they did work. He said that for the last 3 years that both of those gentlemen worked at Liberty Farms. And in fact, the gentleman that ultimately deceased, when he drove him to the hospital, the only ID that the gentleman had was a ID. So at that point, the reporter started asking this gentleman other questions. Well, have you ever been to the, even though you haven't worked there, have you ever been to the Oaks Farms location? And he said no. And he asked the gentleman, well, do you have any friends that work for Oaks Farms? And he said yes. And he asked the friend's name. And then he started to tell him what they did there. And at that point, he took that snippet and used it to fabricate a story. I mean, the exact definition of a hoax, to take the truth and misrepresent it as a falsehood. So we now have a sworn deposition from this gentleman that says under oath, saying that absolutely that when he talked to Fox 4, that he told them exactly the things that, as I just said to you. Even more egregious is he had a call from that news agency offering him $50,000 to report, of how this gentleman would have died at Oaks Farms. So, and when I found out, I thought that this would be something that is illegal, but I actually found out that it's not illegal for these news media agents to get someone to lie for money. It's really, it was something that I was never aware of, but it just shows how much of what we're watching on the news media is a complete hoax as well. We had a Black Lives Matter movement protest out here in front of our store that we're sitting in right now, and there was about 120 to 150 people that showed up. We at the same day we had a law enforcement and freedom rally here, and we had over 1,500 people that showed up. There's plenty of footage. Every news agency was out here. They filmed all of our 1,500 people out here, took interviews from everyone, and when the news actually came out, it showed the crowd out there, the small crowd, the 1/10 of the size of the crowd out there as being a larger crowd than what we had here. Again, I don't know a better word to use other than another hoax. We had several days later, similar protest out at our packing house in Immokalee, and maybe 1/10 of the folks on the Black Lives Matter, and movement and the media, except for a live video that was on in the news press. It was a live Facebook video that actually did show the truth. Every news reporting agency that reported, and believe me, all of them were there for the whole entire time, had footage of everything, but that's not what they reported. So it's very, very, very deceptive what's going on in the media right now. The fear that was trumped up for the COVID-19 virus, they just kept making more and more Americans fearful of it. And again, I'm not saying that for sure that I'm right. It's my opinion, but I feel like the COVID-19 way that this has been handled was done like that at this specific time for a specific reason, as well as this Black Lives Matter movement. And it's neither one of them have proven to be very good for this country.
As you have dug into the details of how the certain of these hoaxes have come about, and then how they've been pervaded within the media, have you found any correlation or intercommunication between people either on social media that have certain political bents and the media? Do you have any reason to believe there's some sort of a coordination occurring?
It's certainly, I mean, when you look at just what's happened in our own company, forget what I know is happening around the rest of the world. When you look at what's happening specifically to our company, it can't be denied. I mean, it's so in your face when you see what's actually occurring, when we see the real events, and every person that was here at the event, all 1,500 people that were here, were able to go home and watch the news media lie, the news media hoax where they perpetrated falsehoods that made it appear as if as if this small group of people looked like a large group of people, and our large group of people looked like a small group.
So do you have any information about anybody, like any individual external to the media, external to your business, prompting the media to undertake a certain story or approach to information that may have not been exactly truthful?
Absolutely. So, so there's Seth Holmes is a doctor and actually also a news reporter for the original. This has been about maybe 3 weeks ago. They come up with a false news story, whereas they reported the same gentleman supposedly dying at Oaks Farms from COVID-19, and but in his report, he used a pseudonym. He would not actually, put the real person's name in because there wasn't a person, and we sued him to tell him that he either had to that he was either going to have to retract that statement or produce the name with some facts, and he couldn't do that. And then it was about 2 weeks later where Fox 4 came out with this, in conjunction, believe it or not, with Chris Knutson, the one of the leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement in Southwest Florida here. Chris and Seth both basically got with Fox 4 News and collaborated to create this hoax.
Now, are you speculating that happened, or do you have information?
Not at all. I mean, it's actually on the. You can see that on that one particular Fox 4 post that both people are on there. You have the mention of Seth Holmes, and then you have Chris Knutson on there that really has only represented Black Lives Matter, but he decided to jump in on the COVID-19 as well because it helped him in his effort to try to destroy our business, because we decided to take a different stance on what we believe that the Black Lives Matter movement means or is doing to our country.
So what would you say, Alfie, to people who hear these stories and want to add their voices to your voice in terms of a move from this this false narrative into a situation where we're all proceeding based upon honesty and truth and free speech and unity and all the good stuff that is supposed to identify us, as Americans? And what would you say to them? How can they get involved?
Well, it's very difficult for a lot of people to get involved, and especially what I've been hearing since I've taken this platform. Many people are very, very much the silent majority. The majority of the people, I believe, really are seeing the same exact things that I'm seeing, but they're afraid to say anything because you have to be able to have the courage to take the beating that we see that happens. That's basically a beating that's a group of people that is these Black Lives Matter movement in concert with the media and a lot of other people that have designs to basically take anyone down that stands in their way. So in the last couple of weeks, I've had thousands of people to come up and give me a hug or a handshake and encourage me to do not back down, because I'm one of the few people that they know that have actually come out to stand up against this, this terrible thing that we know is really damaging our country.
So tell me what's going on in Lee County. My understanding is that they're trying to cancel a contract that I think Oaks Farms has had for like over 4 years. Why don't you tell me how that has worked out?
Yeah, so we've had a contract at Lee County Schools for 4.5 years. we've done an amazing job servicing them. Even as we talk to all of the folks that work in the culinary ends of all the specific schools have been reaching out, begging the school board not to cancel our contract because of the amazing job that we've done. And only 9 days before they canceled the contract, they voted unanimously on a board of 6 people, 6-0, to continue our contract for 4 years.
So what happened in that? What happened? So you're telling me that they have a board meeting, they unanimously decide to continue your contract, renew your contract, and then only 9 days later they cancel it?
9 days later, for the sole reason of a Facebook post that I made on my personal Facebook page, exercising my First Amendment right.
Where we discussed the hoax situation.
Exactly.
That wasn't about the Black Lives Mattering being a hoax, but the movement being a hoax.
Absolutely. Okay. They've decided on that basis alone to cancel our contracts, and they did it in a very. The original cancellation by the superintendent was an illegal way to cancel the contract. We're actually not recognizing the contract as even being canceled because it was done in such an egregious fashion, and you know, for them to take a side in a political issue like that is something that I've never seen happen in this country. It really would be no different than if the Lee County Schools decided to cancel our contract based on the fact that I supported the Black Lives Matter movement. So I'm just taking a different approach, and somehow they've taken this platform that they're gonna actually pick which side that the government wants to be on, and it's actually mind blowing to me.
What would you say to someone that that would suggest that Alfie Oakes is a racist?
Well, I'm 52 years old. In my life, up until about 10 days ago, when Chris Knutson came out and on our local TV and called me a racist, I've never ever been called a racist in my entire life.
What would you point to? Is there any evidence that somebody can look at in your life?
Yeah, well, our company is a very, very diverse company. I have an employee that's worked for me for 33 years that is an African-American man that actually served in the Marines. When I bought my very first truck, we have 240 trucks on the road right now. When I bought my very first truck, he came to work to me as that driver. Now he still works for me right now. He's worked for me, and he's a part of my family. He can't see that well, but we still keep him on board at his full salary as a security guard at night here at this store. But there's many more stories like that. I don't feel like I should have to ever defend myself in this, but it is true that someone that's never met me that listens to Chris Knutson, who I'm sure they've never met either, on a TV station, calling me a racist, saying that I make racist rants every 6 months, and I went on the TV. Again, part of the hoax. I went on the TV, was filmed on at least 20 different news stations, begging them to go through all my Facebooks that I've made in the last 10 years to find not only a time where there was ever a racist slur, but just a racist comment. That it's never happened. So this is just part of what we're experiencing right now in the country, whereas anyone that does not support the Black Lives Matter movement is deemed a racist by the Black Lives Matter movement.
So is it safe to say that the idea that Alfie Oakes is a racist is yet another hoax?
Absolutely a hoax. Yeah, beyond a hoax. Every
it also happens to be defamatory, but that's for another day.
Yeah. So it's really, I knew the media worked like this. I've been around. I've been interviewed hundreds, if not thousands of times for different things. And I know that they never really report exactly what you tell them, that they always have a slant. But to come out like Fox 4 did and do this 100% lies, like there was zero factual data in it. It's one thing to take one of our crowd here and make our big crowd look really small and their small crowd look really big. Obviously, we know that that's deception and that's not right. But that's arguable when it comes to what they did, where they actually create a blatant lie and then run with it with no other no other reason than to to help destroy our country, because we've come out against the narrative that is their point of view. And there's the term now is called cancel culture. So if you don't buy into to what they're feeding you, then they're gonna bring out all the big guns to shut you down. And that's what we're seeing happen right here.
How did Oaks Farms begin?
So I started out on the side of the road when I was 15 years old, and I started selling produce at the foot of the Cape Coral Bridge on the Cape Coral side. I had another gentleman that was a year younger than me, 14, started working with me, and he's still working for me to this day. He's my longest employee. But and I've built this company by always being fair to everyone, and that means every employee that we have, from going from 1 to the 2,300 employees that we now have, and also, of course, being fair and treating our customers with respect and our vendors. We have built this company by doing good to everyone that we come in contact with, and it doesn't matter what color your skin is. So, of all the things that I see here is how much power the media yields to try to help take someone down. The reason I came out is we do have the strength to withstand it, and although the worst thing that can ever happen out of this is if we have to actually lose employees because of some of these contracts being canceled, and actually have people without jobs. Now to see something like a Facebook post be the reason why we would have to let go a lot of these great men and women that work for us is a tragedy. We've seen great increases in the store's volume. I have a lot of people coming in saying that because I'm willing to take this stand, that we have people that are going to buy all of their groceries from us now. We have a lot of true patriots here, and these are all people that love everyone. They love all lives. They love Black lives, but they want what's best for our country. And what they are seeing, as well as I am with this movement, really any rational person, how are they seeing? I asked myself, maybe am I foolish? Am I seeing something else on the television that they're not seeing? Do they not see officers being killed? Do they not see cities being burned and many businesses being looted, and then a lot of really negative comments coming from the folks that are supposed to be doing a peaceful protest movement that was supposed to unify our country, and the spitting on officers and the words that are coming out of their mouths are just not unifying. And I just feel like I feel like I could get behind a Black Lives Matter movement if it was done the right way to really unify our country with love and a really solid spiritual foundation of how we're going to move forward.
So with regard to what happened with Fox News, how can people support you?
Well, there's a couple ways. The most effective way would be to reach out to Fox 4 and ask them why they're picking a side, and then just coming up with complete lies to try to damage a business. I think that if a lot of people would reach out and just let Fox 4 News that they're not interested in completely false news, things that are total lies. Other thing would be to turn your channel, of course, but we're seeing a lot of the channels are doing very similar things. But I've been on every single news station. Fox 4 has been the absolute worst at basically through this whole ordeal, with maybe 15 different times being reported. They've been done the very worst job of getting the truth out. They've actually went completely the opposite way and created outright lies and then reported them as truth. Again, back to the meaning of a hoax.
Well, Alfie, I really appreciate you taking the time to share this with me and with those who will watch, and I know it's going to help them make a good decision about whether to come to Oaks and seat at the table. I know, for one, this is an amazing company, it's an amazing store, and we're hoping that you prosper. This is Jim Boatman. appreciate the time that Alfie's taken to talk with us today. And if this information has been helpful, please click on the link and share, and also like it if you're watching on Facebook. Thanks,
Thank
Alfie.
you so much. Thank you.